Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Barbara Etienne with Projectkin and delighted to welcome you today for another installment of Kathy's Corner, featuring none other than our very own Kathy Stone, the cornerstone to Projectkin, as I like to say. So, Kathy, what have you got for us today? Go ahead, please.
I'm really excited, Barbara, because I have a special guest. I'm not even going to say how long I've known Kate because that just makes us feel old, doesn't it? So
Doesn't matter.
we have Kate Jackas with us today. Kate's a preservation specialist with Documentary Heritage and Preservation Services for New York, where she's working with libraries, archives, historical organizations all over that state to help them care for and make accessible their collections. She also runs a photo curator, a business focused on organizing and preserving personal and family photo archives. Kate has a background in museum collections management, including work at the Strong National Museum of Play and the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. Kate has a practical, real-world approach to caring for photographs, documents, and stuff, and helping people understand what they have and why it matters and how to preserve it for future generations. And I've attended sessions Kate had delivered at photo manager conferences a while back, and I thought Kate's a perfect person as we've been talking all about postcards and preservation and preserving the stuff and how to do that. And I thought Kate can explain provenance for us too way better than I can. So I'm going to turn it over to Kate and enjoy.
Thanks, Kathy. It's super to be here. I'm excited to. It's been a while since we've seen each other in person or on a screen like this. So I'm happy to have the chance to be here today. And thank you, Barbara, for the opportunity as well. I'm gonna share my screen here in a second. And just a quick note that I feel like this presentation is really just going to go through kind of what provenance is and how we manage it in terms of managing our family heirlooms and things. And it may be a little basic, and I'm hoping that probably this is conversations that you all have had, at various points and to various levels. But since it is going to be archived on Substack, I thought I would just kind of start at the beginning, and we'll start with the basics. And I'm very happy to take questions after and get into some, more of the like nuts and bolts of things. So please feel free to ask those questions at the end as well. So I'm going to share my screen here and start from the beginning. Excellent. So, as Kathy noted, my background is in museum collections and preservation. I've spent most of my career thinking about how to care for and make sense of historical materials. These days, as she mentioned, I do work primarily with libraries, archives, and historical societies, but I've always been really interested in how these same ideas apply to family collections. And we were also joking that maybe we should work on our own family collections at some point too. It's funny when you have this as a career, you do it for everybody else, but your own, personal archive remains fairly untouched. So note to self, I need to get on that. Because really at the end of the day, the questions are the same, whether it's for a historical society or your family, right? How do we save this? How do we understand it? And how do we make sure that the story doesn't get lost? So one of the things I see over and over again that I have seen, whether it's again in a little museum in a small town in New York or with families that I've worked with for kind of personal photo management, people have boxes and boxes of photos, sometimes with objects in them. They've got wedding dresses, they've got quilts, they've got military uniforms and medals and postcards and as well as all the pictures. But so many times nobody knows who anybody is anymore. There's no names, there's no dates, there's no context. And at that point, you really don't have family history. You just have images or objects. On the flip side, you can take that, take it a same box of photos that maybe, didn't have any information. And even if a little bit of information is written down, Aunt Mary, 1943, it means something. It's got a little, even that kernel of information is a starting point. It becomes part of your story, part of your family history, and ties back into the people. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Provenance is really just the term that we use for that information, the story behind your stuff. It's what turns the objects and the photos into actual history. So again, as I mentioned, I'm going to keep this really practical, like what provenance is, why it matters for your research, for kind of the genealogy angle, and then some simple ways that you can start documenting it right away. So I wanted to define what I mean by provenance. At its core, it's just who created something, who owned it, and how it got to you, kind of the life history of a photo or an object. It's really just asking where did this come from and how do we know that? That's also an important piece of it. And this shows up in kind of everyday ways with our stuff. A photograph where someone wrote the names on the back, we've all seen that, versus one with no information at all. That's the provenance of that photo. Depending on what's on the back, I guess sometimes it's better than others. Or, a quilt that's been passed down from your family, where you know who made it, which relative made it, as opposed to a quilt that maybe you just picked up at a flea market. Or letters that are still in their original envelopes, as opposed to just ones that have loose pages and you don't know, really anything about the context. So same kinds of materials, but just very different levels of information. So what does this look like in practice? In practice, provenance really doesn't have to be complicated or formal. A lot of the time, it's just simple things like, I would say, like names written on the backs of photos. If you've got scrapbooks or albums that are labeled, letters that are still kept with their envelopes. This is an example here of a label on the bottom of a chair. So even, there are ways that objects can be labeled and have that provenance like literally attached to them. So it's really just information that stays with your materials over time. But what difference does that actually make? Let's go back to a simple example. We've got these two identical photographs. One is labeled unknown man, 1940s. The other says John Smith, taken before World War II, 1943, sent to his sister. Same photo, but like totally different meaning. So that's what provenance does. It helps you identify who or what you're looking at. It provides the context of like why something exists in the first place. It gives you confidence in the information that you're working with, and it preserves the meaning behind the object. Without that information, you don't necessarily lose the object, but you lose the story. And for those of you doing genealogy work, this is especially important. When you're building a family tree, obviously you're already focused on names and dates and relationships. And so provenance of an object or a photo adds another layer. It connects those facts to actual materials that you have in your collection. So it helps you link a photograph to a specific person, a letter to a moment in someone's life, or understand how an object fits into your family story. And just as importantly, it makes that information understandable to someone else, because at some point, someone else is going to be looking at the materials that you've worked on. And the question is, will they know what they're looking at? So this is what turns your research into something that can be followed and shared and built on. So where do you even begin with this? When it comes to documenting provenance, I feel like you don't have to start from scratch. You can just begin with what you already have. A lot of the time, the information that you want or need is already there. You just have to know where to look. Again, writing on the backs of photos, envelopes, materials came in. There's clues really everywhere. This is an example here of photo lab envelopes, which often can provide a date or a town or some connection to like give you a link to start doing further research, or a clue to do further research. The way items were stored, what was kept together, can tell you a lot about relationships or events or time periods. This is especially important with scrapbooks. Kind of the way they were put together is as important as kind of, the things inside them separately, because that tells a story of somebody's, kind of thought process and work to put that album together. So that plays into the provenance of like a photo album. So I guess one of the recommendations I have when it comes to things that are less objects and more photos and documents and letters and papers and things like that. Don't separate things too quickly. If they came to you in boxes or in a set or in folders, It's tempting to want to organize that all right away, but once that original context is gone, this is kind of a really big important concept from the archival world, like specifically from archives, less so from museums, but archives, when they get huge collections of someone's personal papers, that context of how it arrived is so important. That original context is so important, and there's lots of clues in that context to how things were arranged, or what they could be tied to or connected to in terms of people, places, events. Um, so important to keep that together, and kind of get what you can from it before you start organizing and separating pieces, of more of papers and photos. Of course, you're not going to find everything by just looking at the materials themselves. This is where obviously a little bit of research comes in, and as genealogists, I know you are not afraid of a little bit of research. The most important place to start is with people. One of the biggest regrets I've heard over and over again, really, is I wish I'd asked my mom or my grandma about these photos when I had the chance, or about this rocking chair, or about this portrait, who it was and how they got it. Obviously, once that person is gone, who knew, that information is often gone too, unless somebody, hopefully that's you, took the time to write that down. So if you have the opportunity, that obviously is a great place to start. So asking relatives what they remember, even small details, can make a difference, can help you start piecing together the provenance of an object or photo. And from there, you can kind of begin to build a fuller picture. So compare what you're seeing with your family tree. Look for patterns, locations, time periods, even clothing styles. Cross-check with documents like census records, letters, obituaries. It's really, I mean, I don't need to tell you guys how to do research. That's one thing everyone, I'm sure, who is going to be watching this is a pro at. It's, again, you're just really piecing together a story from multiple sources, and that story is the provenance. So as you're doing this, it helps to keep one thing in mind. And this often is a place where people can get stuck too. The feeling that you have to be completely certain before you write anything down. That's just not how provenance works. You're not going to be able to identify everything. You may just have a few clues, right? And that's totally normal, and that's fine. What matters is capturing what you do know. Even something like possibly Aunt Mary, or believed to be the Smith family, or even just unidentified, is still useful. That's a clue that at least somebody did some work, tried to research it, was unable to find something. That's also just another data point in in the series, and piecing together that story of that object. It gives the next person a place to start, something they can build on. So once you have the information, or pieces of it, or clues, the next step is to think about what details you want to capture. And a simple way to think about this is kind of the old newspaper story, who, what, when, where, why, and then how you know. The source is a very important piece of this. Obviously, so who's in the photo, or who made the object, what's happening, when the photo was taken, when something was made, even if it's just an estimate, a ballpark, a decade, is helpful. Where something took place or where it was made, and then where that information came from. The source is really important. Did it come from a relative, a document, something you figured out yourself? This is what helps someone else understand how reliable that information is. And I know in genealogy, it's important that you track that and you record that information, I think with documents. And so it's really the same situation, just kind of documenting that or how you figured something out and what connections you made. And really anything that you take the time to write down now is something that's not going to be lost later. So anything is better than nothing. So once you know what you want to capture, the next step is figuring out where and how to record it. And this is where I really encourage people to keep things simple. You don't need a complicated system. There's lots of ways to do it. Obviously, we all know you can write on the back of photos, ideally in pencil, #2 pencil, or like a kind of an artist's graphite pencil are kind of the best options. It depends on if it's obviously the older paper-based photos, and the newer kind of, with more resin-backed photos are more of a challenge to write on, but pencil still should be your primary way of marking photos. You can add notes to a sleeve and a plastic sleeve, and maybe you insert a little piece of note paper, behind a photo or a document inside a plastic sleeve, or if something's in an envelope, obviously an easy way to label that. You can keep a simple spreadsheet or a notebook of information. If you're digitizing, obviously adding captions or what we call metadata. I'm sure you all have had the conversations about metadata, which really just information that travels with that digital file. That's another way to capture provenance and literally keep it with the photo of something. So really the method that you choose matters less than the fact that you're actually writing it down and capturing it. Because again, if that information only exists in your memory, it's very easy for it to disappear. So everything we've talked about so far works well for photographs, but I just wanted to kind of do a little segue into dealing with objects. Um, so objects are often where provenance disappears the fastest because there is no kind of really easy way to attach information to an object. Less easy than just writing on the back of a photo or making notes on, with papers or letters or things. So um, and also objects don't have kind of the built-in context that a photo does or letters do. So it can be a little bit more challenging. One of the best times to document an item is right when it comes into your possession. If you have the chance, if someone gives you something, if a great aunt gives you something, that's the moment to ask questions. Who did this belong to? Where did it come from? What's the story behind it? How did you get it? Where has it been? All those things are just the questions you probably would normally ask in conversation when somebody's, gifting you a family heirloom, but just important to think that this is the kind of stuff that I need to capture. And it can be as simple as jotting something down while you're, having that conversation, or hitting voice record on your phone, while you're talking, and then transcribing those notes later. That's a great way to capture it. Um, so you really just want to make sure that you're knowing, just getting even just a simple description of, what the item is, who it belonged to, and any stories connected to it. That's the other fun part. It's not just, if you have the chance to get more information about something, it's not just, where it was made, the manufacturer, like, the time period, all those basics. It's really fun and adds so much to your family history if you can get some stories about who used it, who had it, who bought it. Did they buy it at an auction for some crazy price and carried it home tied to the top of their car? Those wild stories about some of the family heirlooms in your possession are always so fun to capture as well. And so they don't get lost. It's writing those down along with the description of the who, what, why, where, when is a great addition. You want to usually, if you can, photograph your family heirlooms. In the next slide, we'll look at a way to kind of keep those photographs together with the information, but they should be kind of as part of your family photo collection as well, as documenting kind of all the sides and all the angles. If there's different angles or different pieces that are important to the objects, taking those pictures is a good way to kind of get that saved as well. And then keeping the information with the item as a label, which we saw, even just something kind of adhered to the actual, say it's a piece of furniture or something adhered to the back of the furniture or under at the bottom of a chair or a tag tied onto something. Those are great ways to actually keep those details like physically connected. You can take a photo of the label alongside with the object. And so you have a, photo documentation of that information plus the object itself. Or you can keep everything together in kind of a spreadsheet situation, which here is an example. I found this great example on Lisa Stokes heritageresearch.com. So this is a spreadsheet that she uses for documenting objects. I just thought it was a good example of kind of the different fields that you would use. And keeping this alongside your kind of other family history research is important. And this is where the photos come in. You can keep a thumbnail of the actual object. And then all that who, what, where, when, why data can go in here. Any stories are fun, are great additions to a spreadsheet like this. And then other things I would add to this is the location of the object. If it is in, my brother Joe's house in Calgary. Like I want to know that, right? Or, like where it is physically, is important. And the other thing I would add is that, and this just kind of stemmed back to my museum days, it's always good to just get a baseline kind of condition for the object. Maybe it smells a little musty or the photo has a tear or the paint is chipped on something or something is dented. Just to and then date and have a date of when that condition was recorded. That's just, it could be useful for insurance purposes down the road. It could just, in 50 years, somebody could know that, oh, this damage has happened, since X time period. So just helpful if you're already going to the effort to do this whole spreadsheet. It's just one more, data point to collect, and I think it'd be helpful in various ways. Um, so this is just I think a good example of kind of connecting the visual record with the data that provenance data that you're working to collect about things, and kind of seeing it all together. And again, it goes out saying, making sure that everything you have online is backed up and saved in at least 3 places. I won't go into that whole tangent, but important to note. And having something like this spreadsheet really helps avoid some of the more common mistakes I see as well when it comes to provenance. Obviously, one is just not writing things down, assuming that you're going to remember something later, and then you don't, it's gone, it's out of your head. Another common mistake I see is separating things from their context. So taking photos out of albums or separating letters from their envelopes. Again, that original context can be so important for clues to the provenance. Sometimes trying to, clean things up, people will throw away what looks like extra material, but it's notes, it's scraps of paper, it's envelopes, and those are actually sometimes the things that hold some more clues for your story. I've seen cases where someone so carefully saved the photo, right, but threw away the envelope that had the date, the location, the sender, right? So it's just important. We all, I think, as people interested in family preservation, are probably more careful than the average person about what we're keeping and what we're saving, and making sure we're looking at everything for clues. So I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but just to point that out. And then again, the last one is just waiting too long to ask questions of relatives. So preserving your family history isn't just about saving things, it's really about saving meaning. And provenance is what makes that possible. So even small pieces of information can make a big difference over time. So there's ways to just start small here, right? You can label just a few photos, make notes about just one set of heirlooms or just a few heirlooms that you have, talk to one relative. Anything is better than any bit of information you write down is better than what you had, yes, no information that you had previously, right? So done is better than perfect. So, taking one small subset of your collection, one set of vintage photos from that one relative, just, start with that and start small, and it'll slowly, build over time, but that's the fun part. There's always more research for us to do, and more clues for us to find. And so just really the last slide here again, preserving family history is about preserving the meaning and the stories and the things that bring all those, details about, the people, the places, and the dates really to life. And that's what our legacy is those stories and that provenance. So that is my overview. I kind of ran through that pretty quickly, but I'm happy to answer questions or talk through ways people are, collecting provenance or recording it for their own objects. Or is it more challenging with objects rather than photos? So I'm happy to open up the discussion.
Kathy.
Kathy's talking away and she's muted as usual. That was great, Kate. That's that's a lot of help, and
Good.
it's perfect what we were looking for. And
Great, super.
just one thing hit me with, and I guess for everybody with the job is never done, is I was trying to upload it so I could show it to you, but for some reason that's my technical difficulties aren't working. But my cousin sent me a picture the other day, and it's a ripped piece of paper, and on it is my mother's name and my father's last name. They weren't married ever, for that matter. My mother and father weren't ever, to my knowledge, at any rate. So I've never seen anything written with that name on it. And the
Wow.
address where we lived, except a big chunk of the address is written on. It's got the street we lived on in Edmonton, which I remembered because I knew at one point I lived on that street. So my cousin sends this to me and goes, "What do you think this is?" And she goes, "I just found it in a box of stuff." And I'm like,
So
I
cool.
didn't know she ever used that name, and that's where we lived in Wellington. And I said, I wish the first half wasn't torn off because then I could have gone and found because I wanted to get a picture of the actual place where our
Right, right, right.
condo. And then later, so I said, very interesting. That's cool. And she goes, yeah, the back has Ravine the hypnotist autograph on it. I'm like, way to bury the lead, Jan.
Yeah, yeah.
So apparently, we went with one of my cousin's mom or dad to see Ravine
Oh,
and
that's
got his
very funny.
autograph. But it's like, oh, another mystery to solve. So
Yes, I mean there's clues everywhere. And just even like it just goes to show that scraps of paper, right? With like the tiniest
yeah,
details and yeah,
that
absolutely.
luckily the cousin that found it is the one of the genealogists in the family. So
Yes,
he
right. Because
didn't
that's
just
so
go,
easily could be thrown
I
away.
don't want
Right.
Ravine's autograph, but looked
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
back of it too and didn't toss it. But it's
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Phil.
Kate. Yeah, Kate. Before I retired, I worked for the Museum of Modern Art in New York City,
Great.
and I, um, back when the, um, I guess, controversies about certain pieces of uh, art that had been stolen by the Nazis was beginning to gen up in New York City. Um, we had a few pieces in the collection that we knew were questionable.
Mhm.
So the museum undertook a huge project researching the provenance of every single piece in the collection.
Wow. Wow. Right.
And the woman that was in charge of that project, she didn't really belong to any department, and we happened to have an extra desk in our suite, so she ended up sitting right outside my office.
Hmm.
Um, and so I got to watch firsthand the research that she was doing. And we ended up having to turn loose of a couple of paintings, not as many as some museums,
Hmm.
but
Sure.
no, I know there was I think there was a Klimt and maybe a Kandinsky that we had to um, release, and um, it was uh, it was very interesting exercise that she was doing, and there were a few pieces that just had huge gaps.
Oh
You know,
yeah, absolutely.
weren't sure where they exactly where they had come from. But I was happy to hear that you had worked at the Strong. That is my favorite Rochester museum.
Oh, great, great, great. Yes. Have you been there recently? It's gone through about a 180-degree personality shift in the
Yeah,
last 20
I
years.
haven't been since the renovation was finished.
Okay. Yeah.
That's yeah that's on the list for this summer.
Oh, great.
We'll be taking the nephews,
Oh, well,
and
you'll be amazed at the difference. It's sadly a little bit no longer really about Margaret Strong's kind of, cultural history collection, but
yeah,
it's fabulous nonetheless, and it's new iteration as a kids museum. So, yeah.
yeah. Well, and yeah, I love the Toy Hall of Fame.
Yes, that's
Uh,
always fun. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting seeing how they pick the different pieces.
For
But
sure, for sure.
now, are you here in Rochester? Or are you?
I am in Rochester. Yes. Where are you in New York as well?
Yeah, yeah. No, I live in Henrietta.
Oh, I'm in Brighton. That's great. Oh,
Oh,
we're
okay.
we're like 20
Down the
minutes
road.
apart. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
super.
I think say we're having the I'm one of the vice presidents of the Rochester Genealogical Society,
Oh, sure.
and
Mhm.
we're having our conference Genealogy in Bloom on Saturday, actually.
Oh, great.
And
Nice. I did a talk, probably 5 or 6 years ago at this point for RGS. It was at the Irondequoit Library one
yeah,
evening. So yeah, some great folks. It was really tons of good questions. And so yeah.
yeah, we're doing most of our meetings now at Nazareth.
Oh, great.
Um, they have a bigger space
Yes,
and don't charge us, which is wonderful.
that is
Uh,
nice.
Best.
but um, yeah, no, we'll have to get you back soon because
Yeah, I'm happy to yes, I'm happy to pass on my contact info or Barbara or Kathy can and
yeah,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, no, it's because it's been 5 6 years. Our membership has changed a fair
Oh
amount
yeah,
since then.
yeah.
Have you looked at any of the things going on with the Rochester Historical Society?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've kind of been a little tapped into that the last 10 years, right? It's gone through its ups and downs and
it's
just
been
what a shame that like so much history is just, struggling to hang on, or
yeah,
struggling
yeah,
to save it. Of a city this size, not having a well-funded historical society is just, it's very unfortunate. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm amazed that they're actually holding on to the space that they have right now. We just did um, a scanning project for them.
Oh, great.
Um, it was really interesting. Back for Rochester's 100th anniversary, they did a project where they created certificates honoring anyone who had lived in the city back, 50, 75 years earlier. And so they collected all the information on index cards and then created the certificates. Well, they had all these index cards, so we have scanned them all now and are now working to do an index on the cards because it had a lot of information about a lot of the people who made Rochester great back then.
Yeah, that's great.
And but the things they've got in the collection there, and you know a lot of them are just wrapped in bubble wrap and
Yeah.
sitting
You
off
know,
to the side. It's really sad, but
if I
uh,
may interject to generalize that point, because I think it's important for historical societies everywhere. And it's kind of no secret about who the demographic is that appeals to historical societies in general, and then who it is that funds and supports a lot of their activities. And
yeah,
as any locality uh, sees their best days behind them, to put it delicately,
yeah,
um, that gets hard. And I say that from a new money kind of area.
Mhm.
Our time is now, but it won't always be. And this town here in the San Francisco Bay Area is like we live and die for booms. And I know Texas understands this
yeah.
as well. Uh, from your experience as a bee, going from flower to flower of historical societies, do you have some insights on where the opportunities might be based on these incredible assets that they have in terms of physical objects with, in some cases, extremely well documented provenance? Um, where your ideas might be for where the futures could be for these organizations?
Oh,
Little
yeah,
question,
that
just a
is
little bitty one.
right. Like, no big deal. We just opine about the future of historical societies here.
If you want, I can pause the recording.
No, I know, right? We quick go do some. No, I really, the ones that I have seen be successful, obviously, are able to recruit some younger volunteers. I mean, obviously, so many of these places are, volunteer run or dependent on volunteers to help out small staffs, and so keeping up with being able to recruit a younger cadre of volunteers. Other folks have had success with interns, and so providing kind of collections management experience for kids who are in even undergrad programs, and it can be a
Art
range from
programs.
history
Yeah.
programs to art history to computer science or data science if they're interested in doing some data work. So really the opportunity is there if you have access to local colleges and universities, and then also especially at the graduate level if folks who are in programs ranging from museum studies programs to MLIS programs or information science. There's a range of folks, but getting interns who maybe they aren't going to be connected with your society past doing a project, but you could really tap into some great knowledge for getting some technical projects done, which is great. And then trying to find ways for folks who aren't retired and to volunteer, which is I know super hard because I'm in that kind of middle age. I don't have time to, I stopped all my board activities because I don't have time for any of that now with it's a tough age to find folks to do things, but even small projects that go along at a snail's pace, when with somebody coming in twice a month as opposed to every week, you can make some progress. It's slow but steady, but trying to build up that base of support for folks who are going to be your next generation
Mhm.
kind of supporters, and getting them in to be interested in your collections and work with the collections eventually hopefully will lead to them being able to be donors and be have a different role as they age and have more disposable income.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
other thing is to kind of just work as much as you can with other organizations in your community to kind of pool resources and share, do events together. And that's what I've seen be successful for a number of small places in New York as well. Is just banding together in your community and kind of doing joint programs and talking about your challenges and kind of sharing resources and
Yeah.
things has been helpful.
Mhm.
I'm going to
Mhm.
Yeah.
suggest that.
We have it's an interesting situation in New York, that um, there's state law that requires every town in New York State to have a historian, and a couple of the towns even pay them. Uh, but uh, um, but that makes it harder on the historical societies because the towns have all these artifacts, and a lot of them have little museums, and they show them. So people don't really see a need for a separate society
Ah.
to to be doing that, and that's part of the problem I think with the historical society here, other than some gross mismanagement that occurred about 10 years ago. But um, you can go to any of the little towns, and New York is weird because we have cities, but we also have towns. Like I was saying, I live in Henrietta. My address says Rochester, but it's Henrietta. But um, and we have the town historian here has a nice little museum. In fact, we're doing our summer picnic uh, there this year. Um, we're doing some projects with the town historians. Right now, we're working with a historian at Rush, and we're trying to digitize all of their paper records. It's been going on for a while. We've we convinced our board and the town of Rush this year to go in halvesies and hire a summer intern from Nazareth College.
Oh, great.
And uh, I'm hoping that we'll be able to expand on that. That this is kind of the our test project, and if that works, then hopefully we'll be able to do more interns
Phil, I'm going to pull
in
this
coming years.
back in if you don't mind to and
Yeah.
see if there's anybody who has questions about Providence. Or I know one of the questions came up in last Kathy's Corner was for people, Kate, who are looking to donate their own family heirlooms because they don't have anyone who wants them to archives or local museums. Do you have any suggestions or advice for people who want to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where provenance really is so critical because you want to do as much work on provenance as you can before kind of starting discussions with a historical society or museum about receiving a collection, because they do not have the time or resources unless it's something one of a kind, amazing. They're not going to have the time and resources to do that provenance research work once they get something. And then they will it also helps them in the decision-making process in terms of them accessioning it, acquiring it, and officially accessioning it into their collections. All organizations, collecting institutions have to have, or should have, a pretty defined collecting scope, a scope of collections, right, which really guides their decisions about what they're keeping, what they're bringing in, what they're looking for, what the stories they're telling. It ties into their mission and really their whole reason for being, right. And so and as we all know, so many historical societies, museums, archives are very under-resourced in terms of time and staff and money. And so they don't take those decisions lightly, because accessioning a family collection of many things, or someone's personal papers, is a huge they're now required to steward that for the rest of eternity, right? And so it's something they don't take lightly. And so if you can connect the provenance of your family collection to a mission and a collecting scope of a local institution, that's fantastic. And that's going to help them, make their decision. And it's also tough because it's our family things. Like, we're so tied to that, right? They're so important to us. And of course, who wouldn't want this, right? Well, maybe you don't have family who does, or who can keep it, or you feel like it's got a greater historical value that should, the public should be kind of have access to, which is absolutely a great opinion to have, but it's, just going into that situation knowing that that historical society or that museum may not have that same opinion. And it's hard not to take it personally, but there are so many things that go into that decision for them, in terms of resources and where they're going to store it and how they would display it, and how much it's going to cost to take care of it, and how do they need to do more research to document things. And there's so many aspects to those decisions. So it's hard not to take it personally. Folks who work at these places all love stuff too, right? And so they appreciate it for what it is, but it may not just be right for them. So just knowing that going in, I think, is so important. And then,
well, and I think they're probably the better organized it is. Like, they don't want that same box of stuff. That's
no, exactly. Again, they don't have, you do
they
that
don't have
provenance
anybody
work
to dig through it or do all that research. So
exactly.
well
So
researched and connecting with the right museum too.
Yes.
Because
and it may not be a museum in your town. Like, maybe a relative of yours invented something, or has a connection to, a university or something, 8 states away, or in a different province or something, right? And so, sometimes you have to think more broadly if you are interested in trying to make a connection with an institution. And it's always worth calling. They're happy to talk about it. You can't just show up with your stuff for sure. But if you have things organized and documented, they're happy to have a discussion about it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thinking about fit.
Sorry, does anyone have specific questions about any of the things? I know, Anne, you've got quite the collection of broad things. And do you have any specific questions about or general ones, who knows, but about the all those things? Anne has inherited quite a few goodies lately.
Nice.
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, this is my own personal thing. What do you do?
Oh, Linda, can you? Anne was just about to talk. And we'll come
sorry.
Back.
Okay. Sorry, Anne.
We can't hear you. Anne, we can't hear you. Are you muted? Are you muted? No, we're not hearing you, though. That's why Linda didn't hear you. Maybe how about now? Switch equipment. Yeah? No?
Should Linda go ahead? Oh.
Yeah, you go ahead, Linda.
Go ahead, Linda, while Anne sorts out the technology.
This is personal, but I'm wondering, this has been in the cedar. I don't know, can you see it?
Over here.
Hold it back a little bit. Yeah.
Can you see it?
Oh, it's like it's like a
your
baby
face,
outfit.
Okay. Well, it was my son's.
Oh, nice.
But it's 56 years old, and it's been in the cedar chest since he hasn't used it. And how do you preserve, okay, when you don't have a cedar chest anymore, say, would you preserve it?
Yes, absolutely.
What would you do with it?
Yes, absolutely. So for textiles, they like to be in our acid-free boxes. So if you can buy an acid-free box from, I know there's a couple Canadian suppliers, Car McMahon, am I saying that right? Or Car McLean? Car McLean, that's
McLean,
one. And maybe there's some other Canadian suppliers, but just an archival box that is big enough to fit that textile. Maybe if you've got other textiles you want to store too, you can layer them. The other thing to add into that storage mix is some acid-free tissue paper. So, again, purchasing from an archival supplier, the tissue paper is helpful to kind of just wrap it, give it a little extra layer of protection, especially if you're storing several textiles in a box. You can kind of wrap each loosely in that tissue paper. Although I have to say that's just an added bonus. If you put it in an acid-free, archival box, that is fantastic. It is, cedar chests are great, but it's, over time they are kind of an acidic wood. And so there is a chance that textile could get some damage, discoloring, or some other damage. The fabric starting to break down, even just from the acid kind of off-gassing from that wood inside that cedar chest. So I'm talking like, many, many decades here as well, right? Like, so it's, I'm sure it's still in great shape even after 50 years, but if you wanted to go another 50 years or another 100 years, I think probably an archival box is the best case for it. And then if you have the chance, kind of lightly wrapping it in some tissue paper, if you're storing some larger textiles, like a, larger piece of clothing or something, and you have to fold it, I always recommend kind of scrunching up the tissue paper loosely and like padding the folds. So it's kind of hard to explain, but if you've got something folded, you can kind of, put in a little tissue underneath that fold so it's not a sharp fold basically. But it looks like that's a pretty small little little onesie, little jumper. So probably you could find a box that just fits it laying straight out. So that's what I would recommend. And I would also make sure that you label that box. I also like to tell people when they are going to the effort to purchase archival quality storage, obviously you're labeling the box with what it is, but I also like folks to label the date that it was packed so that you put it in there, and the fact that it is an acid-free box. And so it's not a mystery for somebody in 40 years thinking, oh, this was just in some cardboard box for 40 years. No, it was actually in an archival box for 40 years, right? So just having as much information as you can put about kind of when you packed it, what you packed it in, it's just helpful for folks down the road. Because I know we get so many things, or the general we like who inherit family treasures, right? Sometimes it's in a plastic sleeve or something, and you're like, God, is this plastic archival? I have no idea. Like maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So if you can, that's my 2 cents on labeling, but hopefully that's helpful.
And I stuck a note in the chat, Linda, that the Alberta Provincial Archives has material here. Their prices are very good, and their shipping is reasonable too, because I thought I could drive to Edmonton and get it. And if you need archival tissue, I know a source for you.
Oh, that's so nice, Kathy.
I might have a whole bunch in my house still from the day.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Are you good now, Anne?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay. Multiple headsets, phone, microphones, blah, blah, blah.
Gotta love the tech, yep.
Yes. I was going to say, I inherited 160 artifacts from my grandmother. She died, she was born 1880 and died 1939. My mother gave it to me in a large legal size manila envelope inside a plastic bag. And it got moldy. I put it in a safe and didn't realize that probably wasn't the best thing for it, especially in the plastic. But we've now got rid of the mold. But everything is related to her career. She won a commander of the British Empire during the First World War. So I have a lot of information about that. I have letters, memos, telegrams, all sorts of things. I do have photographs, and I don't know who all the people are at this point. But I have no one to ask about anything because my mother was orphaned at 9.
Wow.
And she died in 2011. So she wouldn't even have remembered any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess, and Kathy's been wonderful helping me to find what do I put this in? As soon as I found her, it was like, what do I do with this? What do I put it in? Obviously, a plastic bag is not the best place for it. So that's been very helpful. But I don't know how to find out who people are. I know that they're official, in the sense that I know some of the people in the photographs are like Admiral Sims, who American U.S. Navy. I know General Pershing, U.S. Navy, all that kind of stuff. But then there's a lot of other people, and I don't know who they are, and very few pictures of her. Just 2 pictures of her, and not with anybody else.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the military connection might be, helpful in that there are probably pictures of those leaders as, generals and things with other folks that you maybe doing like a kind of reverse image search on Google, might help identify some of them. Or if there's a way to look up like Facebook groups of, regiments, or if there's a way to know, kind of what kind of, branch of the service these folks were attached to, like that might be somewhere to start researching. That, because they're military and there maybe were lots of pictures of, those folks with, group photos like that from that era, that might be a place to start. I don't know. That's I don't have a really great answer, but you may have already gone down those roads as well.
I have only through Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And I've started doing research on, like the slashes on the naval.
Yeah. Yep. That's great.
What does that mean? And one thing that's been very exciting is now that a copyright of materials has expired for many things in the First World War. I recently got digital copies of memoirs of these people. So they've been re-digitized, and it's incredible because you're hearing about this period.
Yeah.
And I don't have to pay anything for them. They're free, and and so that's been a really useful, give some background, but still people, it's hard. And
people are always hard. Yeah.
I don't have any
Especially when you don't have a name to start with. That's the tough part. Like if you've got a name and can go backwards, like, okay, so here's somebody important. Who are they? And then you have somewhere to start with, but it's very hard if you have no name.
Yeah. If you just have a photograph and there's nothing. I do have a photograph that's got about 20 signatures on it. And I've asked a genealogist in England if she can, because she specializes in interpreting, signatures. So maybe I can figure out who they are. They're not attached to the people. They're just on the photograph. But at least I would have a name I could start with.
Right.
So
a couple things for you.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say a couple of suggestions for you. Our old software did a lot of facial stuff. So I got a lot of stuff related to these kinds of questions, facial recognition. First, with respect to military in Britain, have you talked to Emma Cox?
So I have not. I've attended one of her sessions.
Right. So she does that program with us. She's a professional genealogist. This is what she does with private clients in Britain. And she's had on her journeys into genealogy, she's had a series of military experts there. So she can certainly also, I would scan the listings from Journeys into Genealogy, and you will see the people that she's talked to. She's done her own research to figure out who somebody was. And she told the whole story about how she did that, as well as had the expert on her program. That's one that I remember. So that would be a good place to look. The other thing that I discovered with our old startup was that software is breathtakingly good at saying this known photo of this person is the same as this guy over here. Even if as a human being, we can't see that. And it's doing that in math. It's what they're called, math, geometries of your face. So it's doing the math to make those calculations. And whether you believe that or not, I'm not saying rely on that necessarily, but very often that gives you the coordinates to then bring in a whole bunch of other known photos of that one known person. And now you can compare it to the other person, and pretty soon you're like, okay, I get it. It's not, or yes, it is. That's a real, and one of the nice things about military is, as Kate's saying, very often you'll have these regiment pictures year after year after year.
And they're always like this long.
Yeah.
You can't see my
And
hands,
they're
but
super
all-
sharp. They're like professional photos.
Yeah.
And that's why even the photos from the Civil War have been such a boom, because these are heavily documented regiments. What is it? The blah, blah, blah in Ohio. And being able to nail those faces and then use that as a ruler to then take to all of the others becomes really, really powerful. So you may even want to you're going to have a magic key of one person that's going to unlock the set. So don't panic that you're not making progress. You just haven't found that little door that your magic golden key will open.
So in terms of the facial recognition, Kate, you said Google, pictures, but are there other products, tools that, I could say, I know this person, and like there's a couple of cases, I know who they are because I have other pictures, but then there'll be 20 other people I won't know. I just wondered if there was something more specific.
That is not my specialty, but I'm happy to hear others' input on this.
I was just looking, there was at least a company called Dead Fred that
how do you spell
but
that?
I just went online and
Like
they
it sounds.
They're dead.
they basically, that's what they do, is they match up photos. They seem to be offline right now. When I Googled them, it says they're still in business. So I looked at their Facebook page, and it looks like they had some hacking issues. So they may have taken everything down for a bit. But you might want to check periodically to see if they're up, because they did some really great stuff putting especially with old photos.
So a lot of the math that is putting these photos together there's a few vendors that are doing the core technology behind it, and then it's implemented by the smaller applications that are integrated into the rest of your photo storage and the kinds of things that you like. So for example, Google does its own. So Google Photos is using Google's own. Google Photos with their facial recognition is frankly a big lift in terms of the interface to using it. It's janky because they don't want to scare you with what they can do, because they're really, really good. Apple Photos has a little bit of an interface problem. Mylio is another one that has it. There are many others. There's a relatively something or other. Kyla, you may remember the name of those guys. They exhibited at Roots Tech. And the question really is how they're handling the interface. And bigger than any of that is the collection of photos that has the known people. And looking out 10 years, trust me, this is a solved problem. This is not going to be hard. The bigger problem is finding the pool of known people, because the people are gone now. You're talking about old photos of people that no one will ever have known.
They will not know it.
Finding the known photos of those people, that's really your challenge. And then any one of those modern software tools, trust me, just apply it at them, and either they get the interface or you're familiar with it, or you're comfortable with it. That's a
I'm
detail.
comfortable with that. Yeah. I'll figure it out.
That's a detail. Is that helpful?
Okay. Yeah, this is all very helpful, because I go and go and go, and then I go, I'm stuck. So this is great.
This is your cheering section. We're here for you.
Well, thank you.
It's like
I
Kate
do
said, it doesn't
appreciate
have to
it.
be perfect, and don't give up. Just write this might
Yeah,
be.
I know. Just keep going. Just
Keep
keep going.
But be careful what pen you use on a picture.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when I was about to type in the chat, yes, please only write on your pictures with pencils. Do not write on them with.
I'm not going to write on the picture.
Or
I
don't write at all.
digitized all
There
the
it is.
pictures. I've got a
Kate and I have no doubt seen enough pictures
spreadsheet.
with
I've got
imprints on them.
everything, and
Yeah.
whenever I pass this on, whoever I pass it on to, I'll put it on some sort of a digital medium and maybe multiple digital mediums because who knows what exists later on. I don't know.
You never
Yeah.
know how things will be. Yeah.
But
Okay.
provenance is what will preserve it. I mean, in all
Yeah.
seriousness, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, at some point, everything that any one of us is working on may be perfectly perfect at the time that we worked on it. But if no one knows what the handle is to get to that perfectly perfect, and somebody else is making the decision about it, it's gone.
Yeah.
And all of us looking for the evidence that was left behind by our ancestors and can't find it. It did exist. Somebody else threw it away.
Yes.
Or didn't
like
write
ours.
it down.
Or gave it to somebody else who doesn't care.
The worst,
the worst sin of all.
Yeah,
It is in the shoebox and it's degrading right now.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's like you get the cardboard box that came from somebody's uncle that inside is someone's birth certificate from 1902. And it's just like rolled up in a roll and shoved into a cardboard box. It's just like, this is really important. This should not be rolled up. And I think that was a client and we recorded as part of the provenance that it came from Uncle so-and-so from the box he sent to my client, not that's where that came from. We know, obviously, we knew who it was because it's a birth certificate, but it's just...
That's part of the story, like how it got to
yeah,
through
exactly.
the generations. Yeah.
Yeah, because it obviously was passed down by her mother's sister to her cousin and got there. And
yeah, part of its story. Absolutely.
We found Grandpa's diplomas from Michigan Tech, and this family's been in Calgary since the 40s, but he went to school at Michigan Tech, found his diplomas in an empty desk stored in the basement, in under a little lamp, like it was almost like a secret drawer. And we're sort of like, is there, because we're verifying all this stuff is empty, lo and behold, oh, it's not empty. Those are Grandpa's diplomas.
Wow.
So cool.
Like treasure hunting. It's so much fun.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah. Well,
shall we? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Barbara's about to say it's the on the hour now, and if there's nobody else's questions, if you have more questions, I'm sure we can put them in the comments after, and we'll see if we can get answers to them. But thanks so much, Kate. This has been wonderful. It's wonderful to listen to you talk about this again and talk about it with you after all.
My favorite topic, preservation.
Our favorite topic. So thanks so much for joining us, and I'll turn it back to Barbara.
Great.
And all I can say is to all of you out there looking at those boxes and boxes of stuff, flip the table around and think about yourself as a descendant. And did you want any of those things? And what was it you wanted to know about those things? And make sure it's available to them in safe materials that will protect it from dissolving. Or just think about Antiques Roadshow, for God's sake, and take care of this stuff. So with that, we'll go ahead and end this recording. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.